Got a fine guest joining me right now live via Zoom. Snuck a poll in on me, did you? Charles Franklin, our good friend Charles Franklin, pollster extraordinaire, Marquette University Law School polling. Charles, welcome back.
Yeah, I tried to sneak it past you, but boy, can't get anything past you.
I got to read the headlines at thehill.com. Charles, you dropped a national poll, and I want to talk about it. Let's jump right in, if you don't mind, sir. First and foremost, electoral politics. You know, I'm a political junkie. I'm always looking at the next elective cycle. So let's put them head to head. Joe Biden versus Donald Trump 2.0. Who's going to win that epic battle, Charles?
In the current polling, as they say, if the election were held today, 33% for Trump, 43% for Biden. But sort of showing the grumpy electorate, 16% would like someone else, and another 6% say they wouldn't vote. Now that election is so far off, the real question we're asking here is, how does Trump compare with other Republicans right now?
Well, Charles, I know that we've seen some terrible polling for Joe Biden. At least it's been reported that way and perceived that way. Do you see this as a strength of Joe Biden or a weakness in Donald Trump?
Oh, I think it's a bit more of a weakness in Donald Trump, and it's also strong partisan voting. When we put Ron DeSantis, the Florida governor, against Biden, he gets the same 33% that Trump does, though Biden's down 2 points to 41% there. So in both of these cases, Biden is leading either of these two Republicans. But it's interesting that DeSantis, who's not very well known, actually, among the broad public outside of Florida, runs at least as well as Trump does against Biden. So part of this is the folks that are unhappy with Biden are really kind of two types of people. One are Republicans who have a very terrible view of Biden and would never vote for him anyway, almost surely. But Biden's also slipped with independents and even Democrats since the summer, down 13 or 14 points with Democrats, down 15 points with independents. So, you know, there's room there for Biden to recover with Democrats, and an open question of whether he can win those independents back to him. But if you match him up with Trump, who's, after all, lost the popular vote twice now, or against DeSantis, a pretty Trumpy-like figure from Florida himself, Biden holds the edge there.
Well, you talk about Ron DeSantis not being well known nationally. Unless you talk to the Fox News audience, he is known to Fox News and Newsmax and OAN and those places where conservatives go to speak to the base. Now, I thought I heard you talking about the Democratic base had eroded some for Joe Biden. How about the Republican base? What is their eagerness for either of these two as possible presidentials? DeSantis, the guy from Florida, or the other guy from Florida, Donald Trump?
Yeah. I think there's actually some kind of interesting news out of that. First of all, Republicans still like Donald Trump a lot. 74% of Republicans are favorable to Trump, but 25% are unfavorable. But despite that 74% favorable, only 63% of Republicans would like to see Trump run again in 2024. Now, that's still a majority, and that still leaves Trump certainly in command of the Republican Party for the time being. But I still think there's some interest there in that gap between 73% or 74% that are favorable to Trump and that dropping down to 63 wanting him to run again. When you look at the comparison, we looked at DeSantis and Trump and Mike Pence, who's also had ambitions to run for president. Among Republicans, 38% of this national poll say they haven't heard enough to have an opinion about DeSantis. So that's where he's not very well known, even with the GOP base. But his favorables are 52, unfavorable just 11. That's a 5-to-1 favorable to unfavorable ratio. With Trump, it's 74-25. That's a 3-to-1 ratio. And with Mike Pence, it's 59-31. Let's call that a 2-to-1 favorable. So DeSantis looks pretty good, except for the fact, among Republicans, I mean, except for the fact that so many don't know him. Now, as that 38% gets familiar with him, will they like him at least as much as those that already know him? If so, that makes him a really major figure in the party, even against Trump. Now, we're getting ahead of ourselves. It's a long way to primaries and all of that. But the question we're trying to monitor here in our polling is what is happening in the post-Trump party? And is the post-Trump party a rerun of Trump? Or is the post-Trump party opening doors for newcomers, maybe DeSantis, but maybe someone else that we'll start looking at later?
Folks, you are listening to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Got a fine guest. He is Charles Franklin, Marquette University Law School polling. They dropped some new national polling, and we're sort of digging in the numbers. We'll get to the Supreme Court in a minute. One interesting point I did see, 77% of Republicans said they'd vote for Trump again, but 6% of Republicans said they'd vote for Joe Biden. And of Democrats, 84% are with Biden, but only 1% said they'd cross the aisle and vote for Trump. So Trump apparently has got more bleed from his base, at least currently, than Biden does amongst those polled.
I think that's right. Now it's 6% versus 1%, but still there is a difference there. I think one of the things that drives our politics these days is, of course, Democrats are incredibly negative towards Donald Trump. And that becomes a strength for Biden or any other Democrat in a race against Trump, hypothetically, in 2024. And that there are some fractures in that Republican base. 6% said they'd vote for Biden among Republicans, but 16% of Republicans said they'd rather vote for someone else than either Biden or Trump. So this is where there's some fractures there. Now, I don't think very many Republicans will cross over and vote for Joe Biden in the end. But some of that 16% that would rather have neither might stay home or might vote for a third party. Biden doesn't suffer that problem among Democrats at this point. But of course, again, we're a long ways off. The main point is the Democratic Party is more united behind Biden against Trump, or for that matter, against DeSantis, than Republicans are united against Biden at this point.
And Charles, did you give me this statistic that my brain swims sometimes with numbers on the radio, but Biden's reelection chances, or at least support amongst his own party, amongst Democrats?
Yeah, among Democrats, it's 84% for Biden against Trump and 82% for Biden against DeSantis. And there is 11% of Democrats that would rather have somebody else versus Trump, and 13% would rather have somebody else against DeSantis. So again, this is that grumpy voter thing. One of the things we've seen is Biden's job approval numbers have fallen off from July, when it was among Democrats, 96% of Democrats approved Biden in July. It's 83% now. So that's down 13 points. But among Black Americans, down from 88% in July to just 57% now. And that's not an outlier. It's dropped from 88 to 74 in September, to 68 in November, to 57 now. And so that's certainly a danger signal for Biden, that a critical part of the Democratic constituency and a critical part of what got him the nomination is pretty disgruntled with him right now. That doesn't mean they're ready to cross over and vote for Trump again, but it